And you better watch out, you better not cry, you better not pout, I'm telling you why. Santa Claus is coming to town, Santa Claus is coming to town, Santa Claus is coming to town.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hero Movie Podcast, your greatest source for superhero movie discussion in the multiverse. I am your host, Adam Portrais, and I'm joined by Sean Koufax.
What's up?
On the most latent thing you could possibly get. And, of course, Bruce Leslie.
I'm a prickly pear, and Sebastian the Crab loves this movie.
We are going under the sea today, everybody, because holy cow, man, 2 weeks, 2 new release films and stuff. When it rains, it pours in the world of HMP. And speaking of rain, it has rained in the oceans a million times. I don't know where I was going with that. We're going in the ocean, man. It's Aquaman week this week, everybody. And, you know, the DC movies, they've been hit or miss. We've had some problems. We've had things that we've liked about them. They've kind of been all over the map. Is Aquaman yet another one in this line of so-so films, or has something else started to happen? We'll find that out today. But first of all, I do want to say thank you very much to everyone, and happy holidays over to everyone that supports us over at patreon.com/HMP. You guys, did you know that you're awesome? Because you are. What happens, I know some of you out there going like, wait a minute.
Bless you, sir.
Some of you out there thinking like, what do I get with this? It's easy. We got a pre-show. We got a post-show. You get a whole Dinger Zone episode where this week we talked about our favorite Christmas movies. That's right. You could have had Christmas movies in your head, plus some other weird stuff where we just take odd tangents as we're very, off to want to do on this program. So you can check that out, man. And here's the thing. You need some of this in your life, and I'll tell you why. Because my guess is you're listening to this probably, just before or at or maybe after Christmas. We got Canadian listeners. I know that. You got Boxing Day. You're listening to your HMP. You're having a good time. But you know what? Everybody else got something. You gave stuff to everybody, but did you get what you want? I don't know that you did. So head on over to patreon.com/HMP. Get what you want, man, because you know what? You deserve it. You did a good job this year. Treat yourself now. Patreon.com/HMP. That's a good pitch, right? Not bad.
Oh, yeah.
But we also like to thank people that send us emails over at heromoviepodcast@gmail.com. And it's been a while since we've done it, but let's break it on out, shall we?
Bale's here.
This one comes to us from our good buddy Tim. Tim writes, "Hey fellas, I wanted to compliment you on yet another humdinger of an episode this past week. Into the Spider-Verse was unbelievably good, and I was happy to hear that you all liked it as much as I did. I also want to throw in an extra plug for Bruce's exceptional episode of Heroes and Villains on Miles Morales, episode 174, if memory serves. Stay super, Tim."
Oh, his memory is correct.
Nice pull, man.
I'm sorry to cut you off there.
No, that's good.
His memory is correct. I love it.
Beautiful. So, Tim, thanks for the email, man, and we appreciate it. Yeah, Spider-Verse, I still can't believe how good that film was. It really is. I think it was probably the surprise of the year for me. I thought it would be decent, but I didn't think it would be anywhere close to as good as it was. So, good deal.
I'm already looking forward to when that's available for home streaming, because I'm going to be checking that one out quite a few times on the big TV.
It feels like that's a movie that there's so many things that you can pause and pick out little things in the background because, I guess like a lot like the Lego movies and stuff like that, also like Lord and Miller, that, just try to spot all the cool stuff that we've hidden way back in the background.
And it's a really nice art piece to have on a big television while you're doing something else. Like, it's wonderful to have in the background and just look up and see beautiful visuals from time to time.
Oh, yeah. Just make sure that, because we put up a sign this week, and I was just like, I didn't see what the sign said, but I looked up at the box office and I was like, what's this hey, is that for epilepsy warning? They were like, yes. I was like, yeah, could see that. Not a shock. So, careful around anyone that might be susceptible with that one, boy, because you take one quick look over and it's lights out time. But we are here this week not to talk about Spider-Man, but to talk about a character that everyone seems to ignore for some reason. We'll find out if we should keep ignoring him or not. Let's go ahead and play the trailer for Aquaman.
Legend has it that one day, a new king will come who will use the power of the trident to put Atlantis back together again.
This is the exact spot that Volko gave me my first swimming lesson.
I already know how to swim.
Not even close. You have to forget all the teaching of the surface world. Go deeper to uncover your Atlantean instincts. He spent his entire life training. Training to be the best.
My parents made me what I am. I am the protector of the deep.
In this trident resides the power of Atlantis. In the wrong hands, it would bring destruction. But in the hands of the true heir, it would unite above and below.
The time has come for Atlantis to rise again.
We must stop him.
And how do you propose we do that?
By retrieving this.
I already got one of those.
Not like this one, you don't. The war is coming to the surface whether you like it or not.
Your mother always knew you were special. She believed you'd be the one to unite our two worlds.
Atlantis has always had a king. Now I need something more.
But what could be greater than a king?
A hero.
That was the trailer for Aquaman, our new release review of this week. Here's the IMDb plot line. It didn't there it is. I thought my iPad took a leave of absence. Here's the IMDb plot line. Arthur Curry learns that he is the heir to the underwater kingdom of Atlantis and must step forward to lead his people and to be a hero to the world. This is directed by James Wan, starring Jason Momoa, Amber Heard, Willem Dafoe, Patrick Wilson, Nicole Kidman, some guy named Dolph Lundgren, I don't know about them, and a handful of other folks. But let's get down to what everybody's really wanting to know about.
It's time for Bruce's comic book connection.
Bruce, what do you got for us?
Well, Aquaman was created by Paul Norris back in 1941, and he was slightly more famous than Norris's other creation, world-famous superhero duo Yank Rick and Doodle Dick, sometimes simply called Yank and Doodle. You a big fan of Yank and Doodle?
You bet.
You need to check out some of their adventures online sometime. They're golden.
I was a
gold.
bigger fan of Yank and Doodle when I was younger.
Yeah. I always liked Yank Rick, but Adam seems to like Doodle Dick the way he's laughing. But Aquaman was extremely popular at his creation, placing him alongside the trinity of Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman in terms of comic book royalty. But somehow, about 30 years ago, the water-based adventurer fell from grace. More on that turn of events in a moment, but first, let's talk about Aquaman's origin story, or stories if you prefer. Here is Aquaman's original origin story as told in his own words, guys. Have you ever had me actually quote the comic book character? Well, I'm doing it here, and I quote, "The story must start with my father, a famous undersea explorer. If I spoke his name, you would recognize it. My mother died when I was a baby, and he turned to his work of solving the ocean's secrets. His greatest discovery was an ancient city in the depths where no other diver had ever penetrated. My father believed it was the lost kingdom of Atlantis. He made himself a watertight home in one of the palaces and lived there, studying the records and devices of the race's marvelous wisdom. From the books and records, he learned ways of teaching me to live under the ocean, drawing oxygen from the water and using all the power of the sea to make me wonderfully strong and swift. By training in 100 scientific secrets, I became what you see, a human being who lives and thrives under the water. Now, I love that his first origin story was kind of like Splinter teaching the Ninja Turtles ninjutsu from a book, only it was teaching a kid how to breathe underwater from a book. He also learned the language. Oh, by the way, his dad was totally Jacques Cousteau, right? Like, he doesn't want to say it, but that's what we're supposed. There's Steve Zissou, maybe. Who knows?
One or the other.
Anyway, he also learned the language of fish. You see, originally he did not use some aquatic version of telepathy. He actually learned how to talk fish. And his base was a wrecked fishing boat kept underwater in which he lived. During his wartime adventures during World War II, most of Aquaman's foes were Nazi U-boat commanders. So he was like the naval version of Captain America. He just didn't get as much respect because of our land-based biases. Much like Batman and Superman, and you can also add Wonder Woman into the mix here, Aquaman remained in publication during the comics' dark age that fell between the Gold and Silver Ages. Silver Age comics revealed a new origin in which Aquaman was named Arthur Curry. He was the son of Tom Curry, a lighthouse keeper, and Atlana, a water-breathing outcast from the lost underwater city of Atlantis. Due to his heritage, Aquaman discovers as a youth that he possesses various superhuman abilities, including the power of surviving underwater, communication with sea life, and tremendous swimming prowess. After his mother's death, Tom Curry met and married an ordinary human woman and had a son named Orm Curry, Aquaman's half-brother. Orm grew up as a troubled youth in the shadow of his, I would say, outstanding brother who constantly bailed him out of trouble with the law. He grew up to hate his brother, Aquaman, not only for the powers that he could never possess, but also because he believed that their father would always favor Aquaman. Orm disappeared after becoming an amnesiac. Yes, he lost his memory, disappeared, then resurfaced years later as Aquaman's nemesis, Ocean Master, proving that there's nothing a little amnesia and an evil sibling can't spice up. Now, post-Crisis, Aquaman's origin was toyed with, as was most every DC Comics character. Aquaman is born as Orin to Queen Atlana and the mysterious wizard Atlan in the Atlantean city of Poseidonus, and as a baby, he was abandoned on Mercy Reef. The reason for his abandonment was apparently his blonde hair, which Atlanteans considered a curse. Orin was found and taken in by a lighthouse keeper named Arthur Curry, who named Orin Arthur Curry Jr. after himself. And you have to remember that the late 80s and early 90s were really big on the finders keepers rule when it came to babies. I mean, if you're walking down the beach and find a baby in the real world, I certainly hope your first instinct isn't, this baby's mine now. But in comic book logic of the time, it worked exactly that way. Now, one day, Orin returns home and finds that his adoptive father has disappeared, so he sets off on his own. Once again, I hope if you return home and your parents are missing, your first instinct isn't, I better get the heck out of town. I want you to at least fill out a missing persons report, people. But that's not what Aquaman did. He ventured to the far north. You could say maybe even to the North Pole, where he meets and falls in love with an Inupiat girl named Kako. He also first earned the hatred of Orm, the future Ocean Master, who was later revealed to be Arthur's half-brother by Atlan and an Inupiat woman. Now, personally, I've never found Ocean Master very compelling as a villain, but I've always thought Black Manta was great. As far as characters go, though, I think Black Manta may have been even more misunderstood than Aquaman. What is he anyway? I mean, other than yet another person of color with black tacked onto his name, a la Black Mariah, Black Lightning, Black Goliath, etc., etc., etc. But the best way I describe Black Manta to people is that he's like Deathstroke on a boat. He's an extremely deadly and skilled mercenary who has fallen victim to our land-based biases. Also, Black Manta may have done the most evil thing that has ever been depicted in all of comics. he committed infanticide, which is to say he murdered a baby. I told my son this, and my son said, "Geez, Dad, when I'm a supervillain, I won't kill anybody under 13. So needless to say, I haven't been sleeping very soundly lately. But Aquaman has a proud history and solid villains. So what happened to make the public begin to perceive him as the punchline of a joke? Well, cultural critic Glenn Weldon, back about 10 years ago, noted that Aquaman had become ridiculed by a popular mindset that cast him as an ineffectual hero. This was due to the perception that his heroic abilities were too narrow. Weldon wrote that critics and pop culture comedians who chose to focus on this had overplayed the joke, making it officially the hoariest, hackiest arrow in the quiver of pop culture commentary. Now, I personally put the blame squarely on the shoulders of Larry David and Jerry Seinfeld. Now, a lot of our listeners may be too young to remember this, but there used to be a TV show called Seinfeld, and it was like the most popular thing ever, even more popular than hyperbole, Sean. Well, there was a 1991 episode called The Deal, which is given credit for popularizing the phrase, "What's the deal with?" fill in the blank. Now, in that episode from 27 years ago, Jason Alexander's character George asks, "What's the deal with Aquaman?" And Aquaman's reputation has been swirling the drain ever since. So if you've learned nothing else today, you've learned that Aquaman was the subject of the first "What's the Deal" joke to ever be delivered to a primetime network audience.
What's the deal with all the swimming? Why have to be underwater? Yeah, Aquaman was a joke, man. And then, I mean, now when would you say that the kind of turn has
Aquaman was
happened?
legit. When during the Super Friends era, when all of us were kids, I'd say pre-1990, Aquaman was just another superhero. And then it really, in the 90s, people decided to get cynical on him. And I honestly put a lot of that blame on the popularity of Seinfeld in that episode.
I don't know, but something to me, it was always about riding the big what do you call it there?
The seahorse?
Seahorse, that's the word I'm looking for. Yeah, it was like that was always that's emasculating.
That's not any hokier than the stuff Batman did when Adam West and Burt Ward were Batman and Robin. I mean, there's nothing hokier than that. It's a bird.
Yeah, those were times to be ashamed too.
Yeah. And I'm just saying, like, he didn't do anything any more embarrassing than what other heroes of the time did. Yeah. But it just kind of stuck with him somehow.
That's fair enough.
What about Aqualad? I mean, he's not even the best at talking to fish.
Oh, man, which Aqualad are you talking about? Now you're going down an interesting pathway with me. Are you talking about Tempest? Are you talking about Garth?
Man, you pick.
They're all good. And don't forget there was also an Aqua Boy, which was just young Aquaman.
Of course there was.
There was the comic, The Time Aqua Boy Met Superboy.
DC had a lot of that crap where they're just like, just tag boy on the end of it. Guess what? New character. Put a lad on the end of it. It makes it something. No, it doesn't. It's a cheap, lame character. They're like, we can charge these dumb kids. They don't care. So were you ever like a big Aquaman fan? Like, I mean, as far as like books and stuff goes, were you a big Aquaman reader at any point?
I don't know so much about a reader, but I've always been an Aquaman fan as far as the Superpowers toy line. I love the Aquaman figure. I've always liked the character design. I had Aquaman underoos that I really enjoyed as a kid. I think I have been an above average Aquaman aficionado. Now, as far as having read the books, that's something that happened later in life. I didn't read a whole lot of DC standalone stuff. When I was a youngster, I would have read like Justice League, maybe some Batman, maybe some Superman. But I didn't really read any Aquaman until later years.
Sean,
but I liked him.
Sean, what about you? How are you in the? Because I mean, I guess my thought is like Aquaman had a little bit more of a presence when you guys were a little younger than I was.
Well, after because Bruce, I don't know if you remember this or not, but after the Superman reboot, they rebooted Aquaman also.
Yep.
And that first reboot didn't take, and so they did a second reboot like 2 years after that. And so Aquaman's been rebooted some ridiculous amount. It's like If it's less than 8 times, I'd be surprised.
He's still on better footing than Hawkman when it comes to the difficult continuity issues. But yeah, I think you're talking about, they did the Aquaman reboot for Post-Crisis, and then not too long after Post-Crisis, they did the reboot you're talking about around the Death of Superman thing, where he had like the blue and black costume that just didn't even look like Aquaman. And then they did trying to get it, the course correction reboot, where they did this whole Arthur Curry, the Sword of Atlantis, or something weird like that was the name of the comic. It was almost an Elseworlds feel. And then I think they really started to find some good footing with the Aquaman character around the time he lost his hand and he had the harpoon hand and he was like savage. And I was never a big fan of the water fist, but I liked the harpoon hand and the long beard and the long hair. Pretty much looked like Jason Momoa, only blonde.
You're talking about the Peter David run, right?
Yeah, that run was good.
Oh, that explains why. I was like, I remember all this. Oh, there you go. That makes more sense.
Yeah, and that's the kind of era that they were working with on Entourage when they were sort of spoofing the Aquaman movie there.
But to answer your question, Adam, I wasn't a big fan. I really liked the classic look of Aquaman, and I know what they were. I know what they were going for in the '90s when they gave him long hair and a hook and like, oh hey, this isn't your grandpa's Aquaman? Like, I understand all that. And you have to do that a bit. But I really like the classic look of Aquaman because I did grow up with the Super Friends. And so that was the Aquaman that I wanted to see. But I also understood that it was going to be very, very difficult to keep that going if you wanted to give him an ongoing series because that guy isn't super interesting.
Yeah. So before we had this Aquaman movie, we've actually seen Aquaman in previous movies. So here's the thing. Is anyone else like me going, boy, I wish we would have gotten this before we had gotten any other Aquaman stuff? I feel
they needed it. I think they needed it desperately in Justice League.
They really did. I think if this movie had come out before Justice League, we would view this character. I certainly would have viewed that character a lot differently. Because I'll kind of go ahead and start the ball rolling. I can't believe this film is actually decent. I mean, I can, but my goodness.
Here's in a perfect world where we could control timing and there weren't other factors at play, I would have liked for Aquaman to have come out like, when did Wonder Woman come out? What month was that?
Was that like
April?
July? Yeah,
April? Okay.
March, April, somewhere in that neighborhood, yeah.
I would have liked for Wonder Woman to come out in March or April and Aquaman to have come out like later in the summer. But I would have liked them to have been out within about 3 months of each other because this movie following the Wonder Woman movie, I think would have built a lot of goodwill going into Justice League.
You would have had so much great steam building up for that thing because you would care about characters because this is the first time where we've ever had a true chance to sit down with this character and figure out who in the heck this guy is and, if we even like him or not because he almost was a caricature of a superhero and not one that we've actually seen be a superhero, if that makes sense.
And also making Wonder Woman a period piece was kind of a nice thing to do. It kind of takes out the whole continuity issues because here Aquaman seems less accomplished and certain of himself than he did in Justice League, which in canon takes place a year before this, which I think isn't going to hold up real strongly to scrutiny in retrospect. I think this feels like it should have been an adventure he went on before he battled Steppenwolf, not after.
Whoa. So you're saying, like, maybe I'm just stupid. Maybe I'm dumb and didn't catch this. This technically takes place afterwards? This is not, say, a prequel?
Yeah, because I think it's Mara that comments.
Oh, no, you're
after
right.
you defeated Steppenwolf last year, you
just
could
remembered
be the king they need or something like that.
That's true. Yeah, what a waste. What a dumb move. This should have just been a prequel, and then you don't got to worry about nothing. Oh, man,
I remembered that in Justice League, they actually, because one of the mother boxes is in Atlantis, that you actually go to Atlantis. And so I wanted to see just how close it was to their last movie, basically, with Aquaman in it.
Mm-hmm.
He meets Mara. He meets Mara before this movie.
But he acts like he doesn't know. But he acts like he doesn't know who she is here.
Kinda.
And because doesn't she give him that 5-pointed, not a trident, but a pentadent? Doesn't she give him that original weapon that he has that he replaces with the trident at the end of this?
No, I thought he already had that. I thought he owned that.
See, I thought she was who gave that to him because it gave him some hydromancy abilities that he doesn't normally have.
Well, this series is already gone.
Does. Yeah. Anyway, that is the absolute worst kind of superhero movie fan that I'm being there. But I'm just saying that in continuity, it was weird because you're right. She does appear in Justice League, and it seems like he knows her better then than he does when he first sees her in this movie.
Yeah.
She has to earn his trust by saving his father.
Yeah, it's like they've actually like hung out before even.
Yeah. So it's a little different there. But speaking of Aquaman's father, man, isn't this the second Jingo Fett sighting we've had this year on Hero Movie Podcast?
Where was he previous?
I think he was in Barbed Wire or something like that we saw.
Yes, he was. That's it. Correct.
Yeah. So, man, it's pretty cool. It's been a good year in the world of podcasting for Jingo Fett.
Yeah, he's really wrapped it up there. my brother texted me. He was just like, he didn't realize who that was. I go, that's Jango Fett. He's just like, that old pathetic guy going out to the bridge every year, the pier every day. And I'm just like, yeah, the mighty have fallen quite a bit in the last 15 years.
Disney has done some great de-aging CGI with Michael Douglas. I'm sorry, that'd be really amazing if it was Kurt Douglas.
Hey, Kurt Douglas is still alive, doggone it.
Weird, man, weird.
101,
but anyway,
I think.
They did some good de-aging CGI over at Disney with some of the Marvel movies. But what they did to Jingo Fett almost made him look like a slightly darker-haired version of Val Kilmer when he was younger.
It kind of did. I get it.
That did not look like a young version of that actor.
Well, you know what was also weird is like his hair looked like when you see a movie where somebody's done like a bad dye job or something and it looks fake. Like his hair looked like a really bad dye job. It was bizarre.
Yeah. At first I was like, what are they doing here? Is Val Kilmer making some kind of a comeback? What's going on? And then when I saw him without the CGI, I knew who I was looking at.
And the Willem Dafoe wasn't like they're decent, but they're not of that Marvel level in my opinion. Like they're close.
Now,
they're close, but not quite.
For astute listeners, Willem Dafoe has that syndrome where in his baby pictures, he looked exactly like he does now.
I also look like a creeper.
And it's not because he ever looked young. He hasn't aged today because he's always been old and haggard.
He pops out with like giant laugh lines.
He was born with a cigarette in his mouth. How did he even get that?
Week? But no, look, I thought this was it was decent. It was a good origin story that didn't feel. This movie doesn't feel like it's consumed with being an origin story either, which I thought was good.
Yeah, you're right, man, because we already knew the character. They don't go that much into the origin, but then again, they sort of sneak the origin up on you. And Aquaman's not a character whose origin we've been over 100 times like Batman or Spider-Man.
Yeah, and but it's in and out. It's kind of shown within flashbacks and everything. And so it's a much more forgiving storytelling apparatus than just front loading it all with, the backstory stuff.
Now, I was surprised at how much I like Nicole Kidman as Atlana.
Yeah.
I try to say it so it sounds like the person and not the city in Georgia, but with my accent, sometimes it's not so easy. I was surprised by how much I liked her and how well she did the combat scenes. And her performance early in the film against Amber Heard's later, I think didn't do Amber Heard any favors. I think that Nicole Kidman, even though the character was named Lana, she seemed more like my mental image of how Mara would conduct herself than Amber Heard ever did. But, Mara is one of the strongest, most amazing women characters in all of comics.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing for me is that, Nicole Kidman's character just seemed like just like a cipher. She's just there to, I never felt a ton coming off of her. It just felt hollow and empty. I really wish I would have seen something, but it looked like watching a stuffed Nicole Kidman, walk through a scene.
So I guess we disagreed on what we saw coming from her then, but she just seemed more regal. Amber Heard's performance didn't seem like a queen to me. She seemed a little more obnoxious at times too. It was hard for me to take her serious as the real, legit, big-time butt kicker that I know Mara is.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that.
I mean, when things get in a pinch, Mara's probably more likely to have the necessary firepower to save Aquaman than the other way around.
All right, now let's talk about Patrick Wilson. What an interesting role for Patrick Wilson, playing little brother in this scenario.
To Jason Momoa.
When Jason Momoa is like, what, 30, and then Patrick Wilson's like 47 or something?
I bet you Momoa's older than you think, but he just looks good for his age. I mean, I know that his wife is definitely over 30. So I don't know how old Jason Momoa is.
79.
But I bet he's not
so no, he's a little older than I thought. Okay.
How old is he?
He was born in 79. So yeah, he's a little older than I thought.
He's a little bit older than you think, but not as old as I thought. But still, Patrick Wilson, man, just right off the bat, I would say that normally I like Patrick Wilson. Like if you ask me, hey, how do you feel about Patrick Wilson? I would say, yeah, I like him all right.
He's only 6 years older than Momoa. Okay.
But the blonde hair threw me for a loop to start off with.
I'll say this. One thing that shocked me about that is how good that looks. I thought it would look like real crummy because we all know what Patrick Wilson's hairline looks like. We've seen him in enough films over the last, decade to where I thought that was going to be really distracting. But weirdly, that looked good to me.
I heard they hired the hair guy from Waterworld who had a lot of experience working with hairlines and water.
If there's anyone that you need to, that's the guy you call.
But I didn't particularly get much from Patrick Wilson here. I thought he gave a pretty bland performance. But then again, I've got biases against Ocean Master. I've never cared much for that character in the comics.
I thought he was fine. I thought I thought there were some weird decisions with his like victory cries, which I thought were a little odd. Just kind of things that just seemed a bit off-putting and weird, but whatever.
I do love the evolution of his armor and his costume because he looks just like a random Atlantean guy at the beginning, and then by the end he's got that very characteristic Ocean Master helmet and starts actually looking like Ocean Master.
And again, something that was super cool. It's like just take the comic stuff and just lean into it. Stop being afraid that time is over. Just lean into that comic stuff, man, because at this point, we all just dig it. We dig what we're doing here. We know we're seeing a comic book film. No one's under any other delusions. For the love of Pete, let it be a comic book film. And it looks like James Wan is doing that. Sean, any thoughts so far? I know I'm not sure if he's still with us. He may not be.
Yeah, I think he may have been taken as a sacrifice to the internet gods for now. We'll see if he gets back by the end. Did you like Graham McTavish showing up, man, in some of the flashbacks as the original king of Atlantis?
I almost didn't recognize him. I kept going through the entire time going like, I see him. I kind of I know who this is, but I couldn't quite tell because it was obviously like a weird sort of, I don't want to say it was CGI, but some sort of filter or something, so it looks like it's.
You didn't get a good look at him.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like we took off. If he'd have taken especially if he took the crown off, I'd be like, oh, there he is.
Hooray!
He's back.
For what little bit that original, I think he was Atlan, if I remember correctly, but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
But for what little bit that original king of Atlantis did, you didn't really need to hire an actor of like any credits. You know what I mean? You didn't have to pay Graham McTavish money, which may not be all that much money, but you probably could have gotten just a glorified extra for the little bit.
I'll be honest with you, I bet you they had him for a day. They brought him into one of those big capture things that has like, the 8 billion cameras in it, those kind of rigs. Mm-hmm. That they do for the 8 movies and whatever. They set him up in one of those and just like have at it. They did it and he was, gone in a day. I'd bet you.
Probably, but I'm just not sure why they needed Graham McTavish for that.
Money. I don't know.
Well, I understand why he might have wanted to do it. I'm just saying the other way around.
Fair.
What'd you guys think about Mara's father, one Dolph Lundgren, a totally new character as far as I'm aware? I don't know that character's name from the comics.
I loved him.
I never pass up an opportunity to get some Dolph other than Kindergarten Cop 2. I will admit that I bailed out on that one pretty quick.
I actually, because I've been going in and out with you guys,
it's
so
okay.
I haven't been able to say anything. I like almost the entire supporting cast of this movie. I hate this movie, but the reason why I hate it is because of Jason Momoa. I think Jason, he is terrible. Not that he's not terrible at the thing he does, because the thing he does, he's good at that. But he is, to me, he reminds me of when you're going to see a football game on TV and you watch the pregame of the game. The former athlete who thinks he's hilarious on that pregame is who Jason Momoa is to me all the time. And so they kind of lean into that with this Aquaman movie. He is completely 100% unfunny to me in this movie. And so I like this movie enough. You know what? Let me put it this way. It's fine. That's the best way I can describe it. It's fine. Like I like almost all of the other supporting characters. I think that Patrick Wilson was awesome. I especially love Dolph Lundgren. I think that who's playing Black Manta, that dude's awesome. I can't wait to see more of that dude. But every single time we got into someone else's story, I would rather have it be on that person than on our main character, and that's not a good sign. That's a pretty bad sign. When you're getting into Black Manta and all that stuff, I want to see more and more Black Manta. I could give a crap about Aquaman in this movie.
It's a pretty bad sign when the casting of the titular character is your least favorite casting. But I like the little bit of levity he has. I think he works best if he's just like in Justice League when he would just scream out a one-liner like, "My man." He's really good at that. When he has
no, that's the worst, Bruce. You're wrong.
Love that. No,
that's the worst stuff.
You're two against one here, Bruce. That is horrible crap.
Let me tell you. Okay,
I love that. It's when he has a sentence that he struggles a little.
So let me pick this up, because here's what I came away with this movie that really surprised me. And I would love to sit back and be like, this was thought out by Jason Momoa, but frankly, I've seen enough interviews with the man. I don't think he's this bright. But here's what I got from this movie. His acting when he is doing like the quote-unquote superhero thing, when he has to throw on the bravado and stuff, is all just cringe-inducingly bad. However, in those quiet moments where he's not really doing anything, where he's like, there's a couple of moments where he's talking with Amber Heard's character, where he's just not doing anything quote-unquote superhero-y, and he's fine. And I'm like, this guy can act, but he is like, I'd love to like make it like the idea in his head was like, well, Aquaman is like, he's really good with regular people, but when he has to put on the superhero mode, this is how he acts. He's not thinking like that. He's not that bright.
No,
he's not that smart. But he's
not that good an actor. You can be an amazing actor and be one of the dumbest people walking on the planet.
Oh yeah. There's tons of actually. That'd be a good
I can
portion.
think of one very specific amazing actor who I think is probably not bright at all. But I won't name names. But it's easy to figure
not on this show. You won't, you mother. So here
I don't want Tom Cruise to sue me.
That's true. That's true. But I was surprised at how much I liked his quote unquote non-superhero acting.
Cloris Leachman, that's on you.
Oh man!
But it was good. Now I will say this. You mentioned it's something that you like, Sean. I like the idea of Black Manta here, but like I think the guy behind the mask is about as boring as rocks. He is so nothing, and you can tell that this guy's and it sucks because he looks perfect. Like he's the perfect looking dude for this role. But I don't think he can act his way out of a paper bag. Case in point, when his dad and him are like, when his dad is like trapped under the deal and he's, just about to drown and whatever, the guy who's playing his dad can act his butt off. He's really good. And compared to him, I'm just like, oh, this guy's not a very good actor. He's a good presence. I don't think he's a good actor.
And, personally, I think Black Manta should be a man of few words. And I also think we should see very little of him outside of the mask.
I agree.
I think they gave us too much outside of the mask for a long time. It's only recently, and when I say recently, I mean like 1993 or something, that we ever saw Black Manta with his mask off in the comics.
Yep.
And then it's even more recently that they gave him a name, because for a long time he kind of had that Joker thing going on where like there were legends and rumors about where he came from, but nobody knew for sure. And then they've sort of had to solidify that a little bit so that he could be the father of the more recent incarnation of Aqualad that was in Young Justice. But I like Black Manta a lot as the mostly strong silent type, almost like Darth Vader on the water. I mean, he doesn't, have any Sith Lord powers, but Deathstroke on the water.
He looks like Darth Vader. He behaves like Boba Fett.
Ooh.
Yeah, Boba Fett is the better comparison there. You're right. But I like Black Manta a lot, the character from the comics as a villain. I really, really like that character. Here, I felt like we got too much backstory on him, and I think that he did a little too much. We got too much screen time of him not in the Black Manta costume. But when he shows up as Black Manta, I'm having a lot of fun. And I will say it had just a touch of Power Rangers feel to that costume.
Yeah.
But I'm still having fun with it. I'm still having a lot of fun with it. I like watching him and Aquaman battle.
Zordon, just let that guy go.
And I cannot state this enough. Just the flashbacks I got to Phantom Menace when we first show up in Atlantis is that there is a very how do I say this without cursing? There, it feels like a lot of hokum.
Yeah.
when we first see it.
Yeah.
And the performances are kind of what saves all of Atlantis for me anyway, because if you've got Defoe and you've got Patrick Wilson and Nicole Kidman and Dolph Lundgren and all these people, like it's like, oh wow, well this is pretty awesome. But just the layout of it, I do like the 7 Kingdoms, 7 Seas thing. I think that's pretty cool.
And I love the trench. That's a Jeff Johns creation that didn't show up until about 7 years ago with the New 52, but they look wonderful in this movie. Very comic book accurate.
So cool. And I like that they're different species of Atlanteans, so that you're, like, oh, that's why they look different, because that was one of the things that it seemed very sci-fi overlooking type of thing to me, but they nailed it in this. And I'm guessing that that's another Jeff Johns thing, because he's really great at tying worlds together. So is that what happened there?
Yeah, absolutely, man. And Jeff Johns had a heavy hand in the creation of this story that we get in the movie, and a lot of it's based on some of his work in the comics, along with artist Ivan Reich. If I never pronounce his name,
I don't know, but I love that guy's art. I love that guy's art.
Too.
Man, when the both of them were on that Aquaman, I was just like, oh, so good.
Here's the idea, though. We get this spectrum where the tribe that Aquaman's mother comes from is the most human, with Mara's tribe being the second most human. Then you get to like the fishermen or the fisher folk or whatever they call them, which are kind of
the
half
fishermen.
Half human, half fish, and then you get to the trench, which have devolved all the way to animals. And then you do have that one step of like crustacean people that are kind of between the fishermen and the trench. But it's almost like as you go deeper in the ocean, they become less human.
Right. And I do love, I love the crab people. I think the crab people are great.
That big attack on the boat and everything, and them, that was so cool. Very good job.
And a whole lot of that was fun. I've got to ask you guys about Amber Heard.
Okay.
I'm not real familiar with her body of work, and I'm going to say that I feel about Amber Heard the way you guys seem to feel about Jason Momoa. I did not enjoy her as Mara. I don't think she is worthy of being Mara. And also the ridiculous wig that they had her wearing, or whatever they did, that hair color was just too much for me.
I'll go.
Okay.
She's not great in it, but when you're alongside someone who is giving you nothing, your performance isn't going to be amazing unless you're like a Willem Dafoe.
Oh Lord, don't I know that? Oh, sorry guys.
Did you just use my bit from earlier against me? Is that what you just did, Bruce Leslie?
How dare you?
As the French say, peut-être.
I'm like, I know her from a few things because I knew her from the movie Friday Night Lights when she was a kid, and a couple other weird things here and there, like Alpha Dog. She's in that too. So it's not like I was super familiar with her work. Pineapple Express, she's in that too.
She's got like a lot of like pretty decent, little-ish roles.
She but she's not. She's wrong for the role. But it's that whoever it is that's doing the casting over at DC, they need to course correct some things here because they're not good at it. One, I think that I don't think anyone thinks that Lois Lane is correct currently.
Yeah.
And it seems to be more with women than with men. Like the casting men, they're pretty good at it.
Boy, they nailed it with Gal Gadot and Wonder Woman.
Oh, for sure.
And the kind of presence that Gal Gadot has when she's in a scene, the kind of quiet confidence that she has, like based on the comics and Mara from the comics, she should be a lot more like Wonder Woman than what Amber Heard is being here.
I almost say that part of that there's a little bit of that comes away on the fact that she's got a goofy looking outfit.
Yeah, it's too high waisted. Looks weird on her. The hair looks weird.
As far as her role, though,
the hair made me feel like they put zero effort into it. Like they went to the local Halloween store and got an Ariel wig and put it on.
Now let's slow our roll here. It's not as bad as the Inhumans wig.
Okay.
When you live right, everywhere is Party City.
Yes, I'm the mayor of Party City.
Party City over here.
I'll expect to hear that from you later and use it against me.
But I just felt like they could have done a better job with that wig, man. I don't get it.
Yeah, you're right. And the hair on the show is not awesome. Patrick Wilson's is great. I heard you guys talking about him earlier. That's the good wig. That's the Saturday Night Live wig because they have the best wigs on the planet on Saturday Night Live. But then you look at like Dolph Lundgren's hair looks ridiculous in this movie. It's something about the color itself. Maybe I don't know.
I think it's a lot of the color
about the man.
It's the color and the fact that like there's like some gray in it and it's always floating in the water. And I think that's what threw everybody. Is that it's
here's what I'm going to say.
It's so
I
flowing.
think his hair looked exactly like it did in Creed 2. I don't think that was a wig. I think Dolph Lundgren just showed up camera ready. No hair, no makeup. You hire Dolph, you get Dolph.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll be in the thing. Good Dolph impression.
Yeah, he's awesome, man.
One of my favorite Swedes of all time.
So,
did you guys recognize John Rhys Davies?
I did not.
No, I saw his name listed in the thing. I'm just like, I did not recognize him in it. No,
I didn't recognize. It's just a voice. He's the Brine King.
All right.
Now, man, I did not recognize that, but I guess he's a good choice.
He's the head of the Crabs.
I like that, man. I like that. And there's he's one of those guys, you put him in something, he's going to have fun with it. So that's good. I wish I'd known at the time I was enjoying his performance. And I will admit that at times I've gotten him confused with the guy that played Henry VIII on The Tudors, and that's really embarrassing.
Never seen it, so I couldn't.
It's like Jonathan Rhys Meyers or something. It's like
that kid. Yeah.
It's like a Harry Dean Stanton, Jeffrey Dean Morgan thing with me. Yeah.
Wow, those two people couldn't be more similar.
And strangely, Dean Stockwell gets thrown in.
Dean Stockwell. Ridiculous. But I'll say this, man. I think DC is doing a good job in finding directors because James Wan would not be necessarily who I would pick to go do this, but he's a very, very capable director, and I think that honestly, at the end of the day, that's what this movie needed was somebody who didn't need to, go like Snyder and just have that just like, hey, man, my visual style must be a part of it. He's just like, look, I need to competently make this movie.
It is very kinetic also. And this movie definitely needed it.
But I do think, and I'll believe it till my dying day, that it was Snyder that got the role for Patrick Wilson. Because he always gets his Watchmen cast in all these movies.
Well, you say that, but Juan has worked with him several times and throughout producing and directing.
Because he does those scary movies that I don't always think about.
He did the Conjuring flicks with him. So many, several directed, many produced movies. So they've got him and Juan have a long relationship together.
And I need to point this out. I need to point this out today because this was something that I found striking. So, Jason Momoa has his female fans, and so when he shows up on screen, I was hearing it behind me where there were a couple women. There's a couple women who were like, and then Patrick Wilson shows up. He's got his own fan base. There were women who were like, like that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Defoe shows up, nothing.
He's got two old guys and a pack of cigarettes that love him. But there's an actor here that I think might have been either underutilized or not used correctly. Django. And that the character is Stephen Shin, the scientist that firmly believes in the conspiracy theories about Aquaman. And that's the same.
You're talking about Randall Park.
Yes, the guy
who's in Captain America.
And we loved him so much from Ant-Man and the Wasp, too.
Ant-Man and the Wasp, that's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he was also in Captain America, though, as his own, great-grandfather or something weird like that. But I felt like they didn't quite use him as well as they could have here, because I know how awesome he can be from Ant-Man and the Wasp, and he doesn't have to have a huge role. But, boy, they almost made him an offensive attempt at humor, man, at times.
Yeah, close.
And that kind of bummed me out because I know how much fun we had with him just not all that long ago, just a few months ago. And it looks like from the credit scene that there's plans to invoke him in the inevitable sequel to this movie. And hopefully they get it right that time around. But kind of was almost embarrassed for him at this role that he was given. And I was a little embarrassed for myself because for just a moment, I thought it was like a cameo from somebody who's not really an actor.
I don't know. I found that character to be very throwaway. I mean, not one way or the other. I thought it's like Randall Park's doing Randall Park. You found something. Granted, I don't know. Something was bad about his. I didn't catch any of that.
I think that they had the raw materials with Randall Park to do much more with Stephen Shin than this could have easily been a cameo from like a comic book creator or the director or somebody who's not really an actor that just wants to do that cameo to get on screen for a minute because he's just kind of acted. Yeah, he's one note, man. Absolutely one note. He's nowhere near as much fun as he was in Ant-Man and Wasp.
No, I agree.
Well,
I could picture Jeff Johns being the conspiracy theory guy that just goes on the news and says the 3 or 4 lines that's there,
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You don't need that guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, he'll clearly be something in the sequel, so they wanted to get somebody that's going to be at least halfway decent and available.
Sure.
Just please don't add any other colors to the name Manta and give it to him. I'm uncomfortable with that.
Oh boy, that wouldn't be good.
Thinking pink Manta.
I would not even dare to think the appropriate color, so I don't know. But
Fuchsia
I would just say,
Manta.
Just don't do that.
I don't know. But I listen. Overall, it was interesting that it was as good as it was. Now, I had a friend mentioned something that I thought was probably a little bit better choice for this film. Was I think we got too much Manta, and I know that sounds strange, but hear me out. Because ultimately the Manta fight doesn't really resolve too much. There's not enough there for my liking, I feel like it really would have been more interesting had he gotten the Atlantean armor and stuff before, as that's your after credit sequence, and then this guy that you killed earlier, then it's going to be Manta, sequel all Manta. That's what I think would have made for, something more interesting.
If Ocean Master was my only villain to carry this whole movie, I would not have been into that. I think they needed to establish the bad blood with Manta and give him the nice little fight scene that's kind of like your mid-movie set piece to give us a little infusion of action, because they're going to have trouble getting
it just
the
didn't feel like it was
grandiose
enough for me, I guess.
But that's why he's going to be back.
And on top of that, the second that he shows up on screen, that this dude is going to be Black Manta. Can you imagine if they strung that out for the entire movie?
We know that, but other people don't.
And I did like the little Easter egg when he's working on his helmet, the first incarnation has like the tubes coming out of it and it's silver instead of black. You know, it looks more comic book accurate.
Yeah, it was neat.
Good. I mean, like I said, there was enough about this thing that where it felt like they paid attention. It felt like there were people that actually cared about the material that they were working on, and it was kind of shocking that it fell together as well as it did.
Just a real quick question before we move on to wrapping this up, but in the current environment, mostly laid down by Marvel, you're making the rules of all comic book movies at this point. It's very rare, even when it's a solo character movie, like Aquaman is the title, you don't expect just Aquaman to be your only hero in the movie. And I guess Mara was there, though she didn't really live up to her potential in my book. Were you guys shocked that they didn't try to have some other hero play into it a little bit?
I am so glad that they did not. Oh, boy, do I not want that right now. Not from DC, I don't.
Yeah, and it's just... Wonder Woman pulled it off with just the solo Wonder Woman, and Aquaman's doing the solo Aquaman, but we're never going to get a Marvel movie with just one hero in it ever again, in my opinion.
Oh, I don't know about all of that.
No, and we shouldn't.
Well, I mean, we're about to... I mean, I guess if you count Nick Fury as a person, but I mean, we're about to get a solo prequel for all intents and purposes.
We haven't seen it yet. We'll see what happens when we see it.
Right.
Yeah, you don't think anyone's going to show up in that?
I mean,
I'm pretty sure.
It depends on what degree we're talking about and showing up.
Yeah, and there's not even a Nick Fury in this one, in the Aquaman movie. I mean, it's really Aquaman and Mara was underutilized. Mara is a superhero equal in skill and presence as Aquaman, and they treated her just like the girlfriend. It was underutilized.
I'll say this: the two of them, the chemistry is not there at all. It's just,
which is hard. I mean, how do you not have chemistry with Momoa, man? He's a handsome guy.
I don't know that he's as handsome as everybody makes him out to be. I mean, I get why people
let me
him.
ask my wife. Give me a second.
Sure.
She said yes, he is indeed handsome. She buys Carhartt clothes now just because he wears them.
and he got a job at the site. It is. Those things last forever, man. They're built. They're built
forever.
They're built for dudes who work. So yeah, they don't stop working. You know what else doesn't stop working? Us when it comes down to finding out how movies relate to one Sylvester Stallone.
Well, thank you, Adam. I have a prepared statement.
Boy, oh boy, could we have timed it better. I was just like, hey, this looks like it. We'll set this
Wasn't
up.
Even trying to be funny. The connection completely crapped out on me.
Take it away.
Dolph Lundgren. Every nerd everywhere already knows that he's got a master's degree in chemical engineering and that he was offered a Fulbright scholarship to MIT. But what most nerdy nerds don't know is that he and Chaz Palminteri were bouncers at the same New York club at the same time. Can you imagine getting your ass handed to you by those two guys only to years later see them in movies and no one would believe you? You're some chain-wearing, greasy Goomba who thinks that wearing a leather jacket is dressing up, and one year you're watching Usual Suspects with your three dirtbag friends, and all you can and you think you're the living embodiment of walking, talking Godfather characters, when all of a sudden the guy who broke your nose in 1982 is interrogating Kevin Spacey. Do you think Vincent and Mateo are going to believe you? No, they're not. They don't even believe you when you said that the guy who played He-Man ripped your third best leather Serpico jacket. Do you think they're going to believe that the dad from A Bronx Tale threw you into the middle of 133rd Street and told you to never come back? No, they aren't. And they'll make fun of you and call you half Polish, even though you're only a quarter Polish from your mother's side, and everyone will think you're a liar. Dolph Lundgren plays King Neros in Aquaman, but he's probably best known for his role as Reed in the movie Kindergarten Cop 2. And while it also stars Bill Bellamy, this sequel was released in 2016. Dolph Lundgren and Bill Bellamy. 2016.
Poor Bill Bellamy.
After doing a little digging, I learned that, weirdly, Dolph Lundgren didn't want to take the role. And they tried to get Arnold Schwarzenegger to do the cameo, but his schedule wouldn't allow it. I did a little more digging. Arnold was super busy in 2016 doing nothing. Sylvester Stallone and Dolph Lundgren have been friends for a very long time and have starred in 5 different movies together. Lundgren put Stallone in the hospital after punching him in the heart in Rocky IV, and even after that, they've worked together for over 30 years. So there's your Stallone connection for this week. It's Dolph Lundgren. Now, I wonder if people close to him just call him Dolph, because I can't help but think of him as Dolph Lundgren. Like, it's just one word, Dolph Lundgren.
Yeah. You ever have like a kid like that? Like back in like middle school or high school, you always called them by their full name instead of just their first name. You ever have one of those?
I had one guy, man. One guy. And it's because his last name could almost be like a middle name that went with the first name. Like, this isn't the actual guy's name, but just imagine if like first name Bobby, last name Joe. So you couldn't help but call him Bobby Joe every time.
Right.
Somebody similar to that.
Again, this isn't the name, but it was something like, John Robert, something like that. But I think everybody had at least one of those kids where you always said their full flipping name. It doesn't matter. It's just like, it's such an odd deal. But it's
for
not...
us, it was Chris Reed, and that is his real name.
No, I can't remember the people that they made that much of an impact on my life. Chris Reed apparently did something.
Chris Reed
made it happen. But you know what? We like to make it happen here on Hero Movie Podcast. So we don't do everything. I know with new releases, we always have new listeners and stuff. We don't do stuff like other podcasts do. No. We don't have like letters or numbers or anything else like that. No, we have our own patented Robin rating system. If you'd like to check out what that consists of, head on over to facebook.com/Hero Movie Podcast. It's right there at the top of the screen. And while you're there, throw us a like. Why don't you? Maybe, I don't know, tweet us out or something. Who knows? Let's start with Sean. What were your thoughts on Aquaman?
To me, this is a Midland movie. And it's a low Midland movie. It's fine. This movie is fine. But I didn't enjoy it very much. I thought it was super formulaic. I don't like Jason Momoa. And Atlantis itself is ridiculous. But the performances kind of save it from being a travesty to me. So for me, it is a very, very low Damian Wayne.
Very good. Bruce.
Boy, I'm having to deal with like all kinds of different reactions to this, because first off, I think my expectations were too high going into it. I think both of you know that this got some actually good buzz. There were people saying this was going to be fun. This was going to be closer to Wonder Woman than BVS or even Justice League or anything. So I had some high hopes there. And there's a whole lot of folks saying that Aquaman could be the Iron Man for DC, because they've already kind of wasted their big stars. Now they got to make something happen with the lesser known character.
Let's not go crazy here, people.
Well, that's what I read, And then I saw the huge box office it had internationally and kind of positive early reviews. And I was really building this up to be like the deep sea version of Wonder Woman. And it wasn't, obviously. And then there was a little bit of disappointment, a little bit of letdown, a little bit of, not exactly what I was expecting. And then I felt like some other people were being unfairly harsh on it. So then there's like the defender that pops in. And I have a long history of defending the character Aquaman against naysayers who I will challenge their actual literacy on the character when they insult him. But now it's like, what are my real emotions? Like, man, I wish I could have just went into this as a clean slate and then come into this review as a clean slate. Because there's part of me that feels let down, part of me that feels like I need to defend the movie and apologize for it. And I don't really know what the real part of me is, which is a big mess. But I am going to say that I think it's better than what DC has given us since the end of the Dark Knight trilogy that Nolan did. This whole new DCEU that started with Man of Steel. Yeah. I think it's better than anything they've given us with the exception of Wonder Woman. So that says something. Does that say it's a Tim Drake? I don't know, but I'm going to go ahead and give it a weak Tim Drake, knowing that I only have to wait 7 days to change it if I want to.
That's true. I'm going at a very low Tim Drake as well. Here's the thing. I actually went into this movie with the lowest of expectations. I think I did quite the opposite, Bruce. I went in going, this is going to be awful. I'm not going to like this. I hate Jason Momoa, as I have stated on this show countless times at this point. But ultimately, at the end of the day, as much as I tried to throw some hate at this movie, it kind of won me over. And like it's not perfect. It's got a lot of flaws in it, and but I feel like I could go back and watch this again and not hate it. And I was really, really surprised about that. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, it could change within the week. I don't think I'm going to see it within another time this week. I'll tell you that much. But yeah, I'm going
with
Tim Drake as well.
This is a movie I normally would have seen twice, but we had a busy weekend at the theater, so I didn't get a chance to see it twice.
It's absolutely bonkers, man. And there are honestly, I tell people to go see Bumblebee this weekend as opposed to this. I mean, it's good, but like it's not. Bumblebee's better. If I'm going to be honest.
I think that these are very similar movies.
Oh, well, they are in many ways, but I'm saying if you're going to go see one, I think the other ones I had a little bit more fun at. But anyways,
one has a guy that's an actual human being in it.
Yeah,
I would say if you're a huge Transformers fan, see Aquaman. If you're a huge Aquaman fan, see Bumblebee. Like honestly,
wow, really?
Yeah, I think go to the one that you would have less interest, knowledge, and expectation for, and you're more likely to enjoy yourself.
I think that's probably that's not a bad statement. I like that.
That's some good advice there, fella.
Not too shabby. And you know what else would be some good advice for you to stay subscribed to this podcast, because next week it goes down, everybody. That's right. It's our big year-end special. We're going to be talking about the movies that we, liked this year, the stuff that we hated. We're giving out awards and stuff. We all dress nice. It's a fancy occasion that we do every year here over at HMP. And if you have, any of your tops or favorites, things that you loved or hated or moments in the show, email us at tiermoviepodcast@gmail.com. And, if they're good enough, maybe we'll put them in the show. So do that, everybody. In the meantime, Bruce, where could we find more of your work on the internet, sir?
I just released my annual Christmas tradition, my third annual Christmas tradition of re-releasing Santa Claus, A Hero for Everyone over at Heroes and Villains. People enjoy listening to it, and they've asked me to release it once again. So that's out there waiting for you. We had a lot of fun Christmas talk on the latest episode of Chubby Wizard. Go check that out. And if you're looking to get a last-minute gift that you don't have to worry about being delivered on time, you can always get an ebook. And Dragon Blinder, The Complete Lump Adventures, a really good price for a nice, long, fun, fantasy epic read that you can get delivered directly to the Kindle of your choice. Whoever you're buying the gift for, they can get it instantaneously. You don't have to worry about shipping. So check out Dragon Blinder on Amazon.com.
Beautiful. Sean, I would imagine this holiday season you're somewhere along with a Bruce Springsteen tribute band just singing away the holiday classics.
I'm sorry?
Maybe I heard different.
You can find me on Facebook at Sean Koufax, spelled Kovacs. And I'm going to start doing some more stuff just so that I'm in there.
Very good. Well, that, and of course, the Film Find at thefilmfind.com. We got so many things to talk about. Oh my gosh, it's absolutely ridiculous, including that Bumblebee, including the favorite, including Mary Queen of Scots. I have so much stuff to talk about. Please tune into that. You'll probably be out Christmas Eve or maybe Christmas Day, somewhere around that neighborhood. Krista's going to be joining me on that one, so check that out as well, everybody. That's it. So join us next year not quite. We're almost there. Next week for our year-end, that's what I meant to say, year-end spectacular. Yeah, that'll do it, everybody. So we'll see you next week for Sean Koufax, Bruce, old habits die hard. Sean Koufax, Bruce Leslie, I'm Adam Portrais. Stay super, everybody.
Goodbye, Marty. Goodbye, Edie.
Goodbye, Aquaman.
We knew him well.
I hear the drums echoing tonight, and she hears only whispers of some quiet conversation. She's coming in 12:30 flight, the moonlit wings reflect stars that guide me towards salvation. I stopped an old man along the way, hoping to find some old forgotten words or ancient melodies. He turned to me as if to say, hurry boy, it's waiting there for you. Longing for some solitary company. I know that I must do what's right, sure as Kilimanjaro rises like Olympus above the Serengeti. I seek to cure what's deep inside, frightened of this thing.